Welcome again to Joe's Stun Unboxing. I've been thinking about the Jack Catterall Arnold Barboza Jr. result and the fact that you had Barboza, who had come all the way from, was it California? He's a resident of California. He'd come all the way to England. He fought Jack in his home city, and he walked away after a very close fight with a split decision win. In fact, all three judges had it 115-113, two of them going for Barboza, one for Catterall. Now, in a sense, and I have no problem with the result, by the way. People say Barboza won, that's absolutely fine. It was a close fight, but yeah, draw. Yeah, it was a close fight. But it was kind of reassuring in one sense, in that it did show that a guy can travel all that way, go into a guy's backyard and win a close decision. We hear an awful lot about, bad decisions. We hear this word robbery being thrown around like it's going out of fashion, even though most of the so-called robberies are nothing of the sort. They're just close fights. And it was kind of, like I say, I was quite pleased in a sense, but maybe that's not the right word, that, an outsider can come in and get a fair crack of the whip with the judges. Now, if you look at the scorecards, I think the British judge went for Catterall and the American went for Barboza, which is absolutely fine. And to be honest, looking back at the fight, because I do my review videos like 5 minutes after I watch the fight, sometimes not even that, hit the record button as soon as it's over, and I give you a sort of, because I don't like to second guess, I don't like to, I'm certainly not going to pretend that, I've seen something, as I'm watching it, when in actual fact I've watched it 2 or 3 times and I only picked up on certain aspects. No. I want to have a raw, sort of visceral reaction to a fight as soon as it's over. And looking back at it, it hasn't changed. My opinion on Catterall hasn't changed, in that when you look at the way he fights, this sort of thing was almost inevitable. This idea that, he's constantly going to fight as a counter-puncher. He's constantly going to fight on the back foot. For the opening rounds, he's going to be so ultra-conservative. And he's going to, it's all going to be about feints and keeping it at long range. Anything in mid-range, he might fire a few punches, but he doesn't want to get up close. And Barboza, in fairness, for a couple of rounds, he was finding his feet. He was trying to work out how to deal with Catterall's, sheer craftiness. And eventually he did work it out. And I think I could see, looking at that fight, how Barboza had done his homework. Him and his team had done his homework. They knew Catterall was going to be slippery and, so difficult to deal with stylistically, and that it was going to be difficult for Barboza to implement his aggression. It had to be controlled aggression, and he had to be patient up to a point, but not patient to the point where Catterall was pinching rounds, which he actually did in a lot of the rounds. I also think that Barboza, you could argue that he could have thrown more punches, but then he would have left himself open to counters, which Catterall is very good at doing. And in actual fact, after about 4 rounds, I think I gave the first 2 rounds to Catterall, the third I think I edged it to Barboza. But from about the 5th onwards, Barboza was started to become a little bit more cavalier, started to go forward a bit more, started to throw combinations. And I think those were very, very good tactics. Have a look at him for the first couple of rounds, maybe lure Catterall into the belief that, this was his fight. The fight was going to go down his style, that pathway, and then go through the gears, which Barboza, for the most part, did. He could have thrown more punches maybe, but again, it was a balancing act. I think I used the phrase tightrope walk. That's kind of what it was. Didn't want to be too patient, didn't want to be too conservative, but then didn't want to be too reckless. So I think Barboza and his team deserve a lot of credit for the way they did their homework and handled Catterall's style. Now, if you go back a couple of fights, you'll see that Barboza had a fight with Sean McComb, and without a shadow of a doubt, Sean McComb won that fight. I've watched it 3 times, and I just cannot fathom how Barboza got the decision. One guy did 98-92, unfathomable scorecard. And all Barboza was doing was moving forward. He wouldn't have been doing anything. And McComb was, you know, like I said, I think I mentioned this previously in my preview video, he was slipping and sliding and giving angles and popping, and, you know, he was pinching rounds, yeah, but he was winning the rounds. He was just quite simply, he was outboxing Barboza, and Barboza was slow, sluggish, couldn't pin him down, and just didn't do anything. He didn't really do anything. I thought McComb won 7 or 8 rounds, maybe 7 of those rounds, 7-3 fight, and got robbed, basically. There's that word I've used, robbed. I very rarely use that word, but that I can't see how that, well, robbed in inverted commas then. Maybe it was just sheer incompetence of the judges. But the point was that McComb was the away fighter and Barboza was the home guy, and he got a scandalous decision. Now, coming all the way to England, he fought Catterall in Catterall's hometown, home city, and it wasn't a scandalous decision. In fact, the 3 cards were pretty decent, 115, 113, all 3. 2 went to Barboza. So it's kind of good to see that there are parts of the world where you can go and not get jobbed, where you can go and you're going to get a fair shout on the cards. And a lot of people say, oh, you know, Hearn and Matchroom, there's lots of hometown decisions and blah, blah, blah. Look, there are some which are very, very questionable. But there are with Queensbury, there are with, you know, Golden Boy, there are with, I mean, I've just mentioned one, McComb and Barboza. I don't think this is a particular thing to Matchroom. And certainly this particular result gives lie to the fact that, you know, Matchroom cards are bent. I don't think they are bent at all. And Eddie Hearn was saying he thought it was, you know, a very close fight, and maybe, you know, Catterall should have done more. But again, stylistically, I think Catterall was kind of an accident waiting to happen. You can only be that conservative, that reticent, that, what's the word I'm looking for? Back-footed, you know. You can only do that for so long. Eventually, you're going to get found out. You're going to get, you know, you're going to lose a close one. And yeah, I think I don't have a problem at all with Barboza getting that decision. But yeah, I'm just glad that, like I say, at the risk of repeating myself, I'm glad that we saw an example of a fighter coming all this way to fight in someone else's backyard and getting a deserved decision. You know, it's just a shame that Sean McComb didn't get the same treatment on the Golden Boy card when he fought Barboza. But, you know, these things happen, I suppose. Anyway, those are just a few thoughts about judging, about verdicts. If you've got anything you want to say, leave it below in the comments. And yeah, please subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit the like button. And thank you very much for your time as always. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a nice weekend, and bye for now.